Welcome to Too Fond of Books. My name is Janelle and this is another haul video. The difference here is that all these books are from my library. I love the library and I make very good use of the library system. And of course, with the way things are today, I have not been able to browse in my library for such a long time and I miss it so much. I love spending hours just wandering around the library, browsing the stacks, bringing back some books to a comfy chair and flipping through them. I just absolutely love doing that and I've missed it so much. But I am so grateful that the library is still open and I can put books on hold and pick them up. So here are a few books that I've taken out from the library recently. And we will start with this. This is Wild Strawberries by Angela Thirkell. Now what's funny with this is this is an edition from 1934. And this book was first published in 1934, and this is the third impression from September 34, first published in June 34. So I think that that's kind of cool. I also think that this is so interesting. This is from the Saskatchewan Provincial Library, and I've never really known what that was. It's a choice of one of the libraries where you can get books. In our province, we have a provincial library system. And so the libraries are all connected, and so I can actually request a book from anywhere in the province and they will bring it in, which is awesome. But this one is the Saskatchewan Provincial Library, which is here in the city, and the older thing in here says Saskatchewan Provincial Library Backup Fiction. I have no idea what that means. So if any of you out there are more familiar with how libraries work or are actual librarians and can tell me what that might mean, I would love to know. But anyway, I've read, I think, one or two books by Angela Thirkell, and so I was just really interested in trying out more from her. I think she's an underrated author from the 30s, and so yeah, Wild Strawberries. I also got In the Dark by Cara Hunter. This is the second in her series. I really recently read the first one. It was the video I did of Tools of the Mystery Writer. I did a review of her first book, Close to Home, and talked about some of the devices that she used. This is the second in the series. Her main character is Inspector Adam Foley, and they're set in Oxford. In the Dark, this one sounds great. A woman and child are found locked in a basement, barely alive, unidentifiable. The woman can't speak, there are no missing persons reports that match their profiles, and the confused elderly man who owns the house claims he has never seen them before. The inhabitants of the quiet street are in shock. How could this happen right under their noses? But Detective Inspector Adam Foley knows nothing is impossible and no one is as innocent as they seem. A deeply unsettling, heart-stopping novel about long-buried secrets and the monsters who hide in plain sight. That sounds good. I also got Murder at the Manchester Museum by Jim Eldridge. This is the next up in this series. I've been enjoying this series. They're set in the late 1800s, 1895. And the main characters are Daniel Wilson, who is an investigator, and Abigail Fenton, who is an archaeologist. And each of the books in this series are set at a museum, which I think that's so interesting. I think museums are fascinating and a great location for a mystery. 1895, former Jack the Ripper detective Daniel Wilson and his archaeologist sidekick Abigail Fenton are summoned to investigate the murder of a young woman at the Manchester Museum. Though staff remember the woman as a recent and regular visitor, no one appears to know who she was, nor was she carrying any identification. The case suddenly turns more sinister when the body of a second woman is discovered. Wilson and Fenton seek help from a local journalist hoping to unravel the mystery, but the journey to the truth is fraught with obstacles and the mistakes of the past will not be forgotten. I have Old Baggage by Lissa Evans. I've read a couple of her books. I've read Crooked Heart and Their Finest, And this is one set a little earlier than those two. Those two are World War II historical fictions. This one is set in 1928. Matilda Simpkin is a woman with a thrilling past and an infuriatingly dull present. As a militant suffragette, she marched, smashed windows, heckled Winston Churchill, and was jailed 5 times. Now in middle age, the closest she gets to the excitement of her old life is the occasional lecture on the history of the movement, given to a lukewarm audience. But after being shocked to discover that an old comrade has embraced fascism, Maddie realizes that there is a new cause and a fresh generation to fight for. Thus, the Amazons are formed, a club that gives girls a place to exercise their bodies and minds, igniting a much-needed interest in the world around them. It is a wild success until a new recruit sends Maddie's past crashing into her present, and every principle she has ever stood for is threatened. I have Boris Akunin's sister Pelagia and the White Bulldog. This is the first in a new series. I've read some of his Inspector Fandorin series, which is great. This is also set in Russia. These have been translated into the English. This is translated by Andrew Broomfield. In a remote Russian province in the late 19th century, Bishop Mitrofani is entangled in a family crisis. After learning that one of his great-aunt's beloved and rare white bulldogs has been poisoned, the Orthodox prelate knows that there is only one detective clever enough to investigate the murder, Sister Pelagia. The bespectacled, freckled nun is lively, curious, extraordinarily clumsy, and persistent. In search of a killer, Pelagia finds a whole host of suspects, any one of whom might have benefited if the old lady, who changes her will at whim, had expired of grief at the pooch's demise. There's Peter, the matron's grandson, a nihilist with a grudge who has fallen for the maid. Stepan, a penniless caretaker who has sacrificed his youth to the care of the estate. Miss Wrigley, a mysterious English woman who has recently been named sole heiress to the fortune. Poggio, a opportunistic and freeloading artistic photographer. And most intriguing, Dianne, the old lady's granddaughter, a girl so beautiful she could drive any man to do almost anything. As Pelagia bumbles and intuits her way to the heart of a mystery among people with faith only in greed and desire, she must bear in mind the words of St. Paul, "Beware of dogs and beware of evildoers." Then the second in this new series that I've just discovered and am totally loving, The Perplexing Theft of the Jewel in the Crown by Vaseem Khan. This is set in modern-day India in Mumbai. For centuries, the Kohinoor diamond has set man against man and king against king. Now part of the British crown jewels, the priceless gem is a prize that many have killed to possess. So when the crown jewels go on display in Mumbai, security is everyone's principal concern. And yet, on the very day Inspector Chopra visits the exhibition, the diamond is stolen from under his nose. The heist was daring and seemingly impossible. The hunt is on for the culprits, but it soon becomes clear that only one man and his elephant can possibly crack this case. This is also the second in a new series that I've discovered and I'm really enjoying. This is A Lady's Guide to Gossip and Murder by Dianne Freeman. So I love the cover designs of these. In this one, it's a little hard to tell, but it appears that while this guy is greeting this woman, this guy is stealing from him, is what it looks like to me. Alright, so these are set in the 1800s as well, I believe. 1899. Okay. Though American by birth, Frances Wynne, the now widowed Countess of Harley, has adapted admirably to the quirks and traditions of the British aristocracy. On August 12th each year, otherwise known as the Glorious 12th, Most members of the upper class retire to their country estates for grouse shooting season. Frances has little interest in hunting, for birds or a second husband, and is expecting to spend a quiet few months in London with her almost engaged sister Lily until the throng returns. Instead, she's immersed in a shocking mystery when a friend, Mary Archer, is found murdered. Frances had hoped Mary might make a suitable bride for her cousin Charles, but their courtship recently fizzled out. Unfortunately, this puts Charles in the spotlight, along with dozens of others. It seems Mary had countless notes hidden in her home detailing the private indiscretions of society's elite. Frances can hardly believe that the genteel and genial Mary was a blackmailer, yet why else would she hoard such juicy tidbits? Aided by her gallant friend and neighbor, George Hazelton, Frances begins assisting the police in this highly sensitive case, learning more about her peers than she ever wished to know. Too many suspects may be worse than none at all, but even more worrying is that the number of victims is increasing too, and unless Frances takes care, she'll soon find herself among them. Alright, this is a new to me author, R.V. Raman, A Will to Kill, a Harith Athria mystery. This is also set in India. The author has written a couple of series published in India, loosely based on his corporate career spanning 3 decades in 4 continents. In addition to writing, he teaches business strategy at the Indian Institute of Management. So, A Will to Kill, the first in a new series from author R.V. Raman, channels Agatha Christie, a haunted manor house, estranged relatives, a will, and a murder, but set in modern-day India. That already sounds awesome. Aging and wheel-bound patriarch Bhaskar Fernandez has finally reclaimed his family property after a bitter legal battle and now wants to reunite his aggrieved relatives. So he invites them to remote Greybrook Manor in the misty Milgiris, a mansion that has played host to several sudden deaths. It stands alone in a valley that is said to be haunted by the ghost of an Englishman. But Bhaskar has other more practical problems to deal with. He knows that his family is waiting for him to die to regain the family fortune. And to safeguard himself against violence during the house party, he writes 2 conflicting wills. Which one of them comes into force depends on how he dies. Into this tinderbox he brings Harith Athria, a seasoned investigator. When a landslide temporarily isolates the house guests at the mansion and a body is discovered, Athria finds murder is not the only thing the mists conceal. So, not only is this described as Agatha Christie-esque, it is also an isolated closed circle mystery, and so I am super excited about this one. I really hope I like it. And then, it seems like this grouping of books is all about the second in a series, and the next one is true for that. This is November Rain by Maureen Jennings. This is the second in her Paradise Cafe mystery series. This is set in Toronto, Canada, in the mid-30s. I really liked the first one in the series, which was called Heatwave, and this is called November Rain. Charlotte Frayn's boss, Mr. Gilmore, travels to Europe in the fall of 1936 on a mysterious trip, leaving her in charge of the firm. The redoubtable Mrs. Jessup hires Charlotte to investigate the untimely death of her son, a disfigured and injured veteran of the Great War. The police ruled it a suicide, but Mrs. Jessup doesn't agree and wants Charlotte to find out what really happened. On the same day, Charlotte is hired to infiltrate a small women's wear manufacturer to uncover communist agitators the owner believes are responsible for the labor unrest in his company. When the factory supervisor is discovered murdered on the job, the same day Charlotte turns up for her first shift at Ladies Superior Clothing, she finds herself seconded by the police in their investigations. The November clouds darken and Charlotte is left to struggle to solve 2 mysteries at the same time, until they intersect. Maureen Jennings is well known for her Inspector Murdoch books that she wrote that were turned into a TV series. And so yeah, I'm excited to get into this one too. Another second in a series is Lady Cop Makes Trouble by Amy Stewart. This is a Cop Sisters novel, the second in the series, and these are also historical mysteries set in New Jersey in 1915. Constance Kopp and her sisters aren't going to be living a quiet life anymore. They made the news by fighting back against a ruthless silk factory owner and his gang of thugs. And after Bergen County's Sheriff Heath sees Constance in action, he appoints her as one of the nation's first female deputies. He knows she's a powerful addition to his force, and she knows she can do the job. But when the wiles of a German-speaking con man threaten her position and her hopes for this new life, and risk the honorable sheriff's being thrown in his own jail, Constance is forced to prove herself again. And then finally, The Vanishing season by Joanna Schaffhausen. Ellery Hathaway knows a thing or two about serial killers, but not through her police training. She's an officer in sleepy Woodbury, Massachusetts, where a bicycle theft still makes the newspapers. No one there knows she was once victim number 17 in the grisly story of serial killer Francis Michael Coben, the only one who lived. When 3 people disappear from her town in 3 years, all around her birthday, Ellery fears someone knows her secret, someone very dangerous. Her superiors dismiss her concerns, but Ellery knows the vanishing season is coming and anyone could be next. She contacts the one man who she knows will believe her, the FBI agent who saved her from a killer all those years ago. So yeah, that sounds good. So this is what I have gotten recently from my library. Have you read any of these books? I would love to hear your thoughts on them, and I will see you for another video soon. Bye.